Hey everyone, pleased to be joined by Matt Slater, the man responsible for breaking the story yesterday. It was everywhere. A Czech billionaire wants to invest in West Ham United. This man's responsible for breaking the news. I'm here to have a little chat with him, find out where he got the news, what is the news, and who is the Czech billionaire a little bit. But Matt, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me.
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm excited. Because of you.
Good to hear. Well, all right. It's not my money.
Blank canvas for you. What's the story? What's the news that you've got?
Well, it is that. Well, look. The first thing perhaps to say is that West Ham, like many clubs, have been for sale for a while. Now, there's for sale and there's for sale in football. Just for example, the Championship, I would say 3/4 of the clubs are for sale, if not more, 5/6. But that doesn't mean they're for sale like your house would be for sale. Doesn't mean that there's an estate agent with a window and your house is picturing it and a for sale sign outside. There are some like that. There are some that are very much emphatically for sale. But there are majority of them would be more informally. I would like some help. Make me an offer. They might appoint a broker. They might appoint some intermediaries to, test the water. They might go as far as putting together a sales brochure, an investment deck. It's known in the sort of business. There are different levels of being for sale. Now, West Ham have been one of these clubs. It's sort of kind of make me an offer type for sale. Now, what I do, I cover the sort of the business of sport. I used to be a business journalist. I've always been interested in money, not in a sort of kind of grubby way, but just sort of make the world go round sort of way. So I've got, built up over the years quite good contacts in that world, that world of sorts of intermediaries, of bankers, of lawyers who do this M&A type stuff, mergers and acquisition type stuff. So I'm always asking them, what's going on? What do you know? What's happening with Southampton? What's happening with West Brom? What's happening with Newcastle? These big sort of takeover type stories. And West Ham has been a story that's come round again and again. What's happening in West Ham? So whilst I didn't quite break it, I sort of knew all about PAI. I then did the sort of first big follow-up. I've had him on my podcast. So I knew all about that story. And I sort of always sensed that PAI were kind of the stalking horse, that they were the proof that Sullivan and Gold, particularly Sullivan's been leading the show here, were moving into sort of more, make me an offer to, no, we're for sale. I need some investment. I'm looking for investment. It wasn't going to be PAI. There were various issues with that. I'm sure you've done shows on that one before. But to me, it was evidence that, no, West Ham are in play here. So instead of asking every sort of 6 months, what do you know about West Ham? I was asking my contacts more regularly. So that's kind of what I do. I do sort of takeover stories. And the whispers about West Ham were growing. Now, as I'm sure we'll get into, are Sullivan and Gold selling up straight away? Can they sell up straight away? Is it sensible for them to sell up straight away? So it's an investment. It's a staged investment. Now, for me, the most interesting thing about this story, and I think this deal, which I do believe is going to happen, is the person. Because the story, the more general story about football takeovers in the last couple years has been the Americans are coming. There's a wave of American money. It's all to do with interest rates and the fact that US sports franchises cost too much money that is coming. They're interested. They like football's global appeal. They like owning sports clubs. They think that they can do it better than us. All sorts of reasons, right? The Chinese money's been and gone. That was a bit of a disaster, that experiment. But there's American money coming. And that's where a lot of my stories have been about that. And that's where I always assumed West Ham was going, to be honest. It was only very, very, very recently, as in the last few days, I heard it's not America with this one. And I only got the name relatively recently. And the name is Daniel Kretinsky, as I'm sure everyone's read now. And I must admit, I didn't know a great deal about him when I got the name. I knew that there was sale. I knew that there was a staged plan. There'd be a minority investment with a plan to maybe sort of a majority investment further down the line. I knew also that West Ham's very high valuation, very high asking price, which I thought would be a problem. Well, for some people, maybe it's not. And maybe some people do think West Ham are worth what Sullivan and Karen Brady and Gold think it's worth, which is a 600 million plus. So double what Newcastle just went for. Now I've always been a bit surprised by that. But anyway, we will see. We'll see on the number. I think there's a few more twists and turns in this one to come on that number and what that number means and what it entails with the stadium, etc. But it's a big valuation. It's a big valuation when you look at West Ham's turnover, the amount of debt that's there. It's just a big number. So Kretinsky, though, is a really interesting guy. Really, really interesting guy. Czech billionaire, self-made man, lawyer by trade, got into the energy business. Has made a fortune, he's developed a reputation. It's almost sort of like Czech Republic's answer to Warren Buffett. He makes investments, strategic investments in sometimes unloved, unfashionable stocks. He appears to have an eye for them. So in this country, in the last year or so, he's got into Royal Mail and Sainsbury's, not exactly stock market darlings at the time, and he's sitting on big paper profits there. Now, you could argue, wow, it all makes sense now. Lockdown happens, we start getting home deliveries and supermarkets do really well. Yeah, but he spotted it. He's not, his energy trading business, he got that bet wrong. Because the gas prices sort of caught him out a little bit. So no one gets everything right, but he's a canny investor. So, whether that should excite West Ham fans or not, I don't know. That's for you to decide. But this guy clearly knows a lot about money, knows a lot about businesses, knows a lot about valuing businesses. I think the other interesting thing about him is that at a relatively early age in his sort of business career, meteoric business career in many ways, he got into Sparta Prague. He bought a 40% stake in them, I think in 2004, in his mid-30s. He's been their president ever since. They still are, I guess. Czech Republic's most successful, one of their biggest teams. They haven't been particularly successful under him, which probably is of more interest to West Ham fans than how well he's done on Sainsbury's and Royal Mail. But he's a fascinating guy. I mean, he doesn't say a great deal. In fact, he doesn't say anything at all. But just his business career is really interesting.
Yeah, him saying not much appeals to West Ham fans
Okay.
after the recent law. I can assure you one thing that we weren't too happy with in Sullivan in particular was his media-friendly presence. He's calmed it down the last couple of seasons, but prior to that, he was constantly telling everybody what was going on and then not failing to achieve what he claimed was going on. And that was one of the pet hates from West Ham fans. So we were almost to get someone in that was quite silent. There won't be much complaints from the fan base in regards to that. But looking at the share that you're reporting, 27%, it's a very specific number. Is there a reason it's 27% and not 30 or 25 or anything like that?
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I've been asking the same questions. I mean, the honest answer is I don't know. I suspect it will be about Sullivan and Gold remaining in charge for the period. There will have been a discussion about, because the others will have to dilute their shares. So at the moment, I think Sullivan has, is it 51.5? Gold's got about a third.
Gold's 35.
Yeah, Trip Smith's 10%, and then there's a handful. There's about 3-4% owned by sort of, others. So there will have been a negotiation with all parties about a dilution, and then remaining control. And then I think the other element to it is, I know something that West Ham fans are well aware of, and the various fanzines have been writing about this. Is this sort of clawback clause in the deal with the London Legacy Development Corporation, with the owners of the stadium, March 2023, which again has always been one of the reasons why, whenever in the past I've spoken about West Ham, it's sort of like, well, yeah, they're for sale, but they're not really for sale, because if Sullivan and Gold sell up before March 2023, there's a sliding scale that was clause that was put into the contract that London taxpayers basically will get some of the profit, which was a clever deal, makes sense. But whenever you put a deal in a contract with a date on it, kind of it's a great big sort of red flag as to when this could happen and when this probably will happen. So I think it's probably an element of sort of control, maybe just Kretinsky's careful approach to business. If you look at the stakes he's taken in companies, I don't think he owns many of them outright. I think the biggest company he owns is this big energy company in the Czech Republic, which was sort of the start of his business story. He owns, I think, 94% of that. They're the biggest energy supplier in the Czech Republic. They're sort of the third biggest mining company in Germany. They've got interests, Italy, Ireland, you name it. They're all over the place. But in other businesses, it's sort of 30% here, 40% there. I think Royal Mail, it's up to, is it about 19% now? Sainsbury's, it's sort of 10. He reminds me of Warren Buffett. He takes strategic stakes in companies.
So do you think eventually he would look at taking the whole West Ham United, or, I'm just asking you for your personal opinion here rather, or do you think he'd take the 20% and be happy with that as long as West Ham were doing well? This
is my personal opinion now. So I don't know, but whenever you talk to anybody in football, they often say, particularly with these small stakes, what's the point, right? You're not in charge. So this sort of came up in the Crystal Palace story with John Textor. It's come up, again and again. A famous one being Usmanov and Arsenal. What's the point? If you can be outvoted, what's the point? Now, for some people, having 10% in Man United, just sitting there, if you like owning sports clubs and Man United earn money and it's sort of sexy, fine. But otherwise, you kind of want to be in charge. Now he had 40 of Sparta Prague and was in charge. He could do things. I suspect that no, he's not going to stop at 27%. Because what's the point?
Just earlier, when I asked about the share makeup, you said they're going to dilute the shares. Do you know if that's factual or is that an opinion again? Because there's some contrasting reports of a spin-off from your report, as it happens, a domino effect happens through the media, you report it, and then everybody else goes off, and it becomes a bit Chinese whispery. So 10 reports later on another media outlet, it's a bit different. And there's some suggesting that it will be made up of diluted shares, but also David Gold is the one that's perhaps selling up his part of the club. Not all of it, but he's going to be selling part of his shares in the club. Have you any clarity on that at all?
No, I've heard that theory too. I heard that theory from the beginning, to be honest. The dilution is more sort of something that was explained to me over the last couple of days, that Sullivan and Gold are not necessarily selling up. Do not read into this as this is the end of them right now. However, there has been talk for some time that Gold is the one who Gold's family really want to sell up. So that is where I think the follow-up stories are. I understand where they come from. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying I've heard both. But my hunch is dilution, but I could be wrong.
Earlier you said that you're quite confident this deal would get done. It's a strong phrase to use. But that would insinuate there's something there that makes you confident. So how far down the line do you think these negotiations are?
Yeah, I think they're pretty far down the line. A lot of journalists, we like to sort of just make sure we give ourselves some wiggle room,
one line dangling over the fence.
And takeover deals break down all the time. They break down like transfer stories do. So I'm not 100% sure. No, I'm not 100% sure about anything. I covered every cough and spit of Newcastle, and this deal's not done. Your house sale can fall through at the last minute. I just think that the sides are confident here. They've been talking a long time. I have heard a theory that West Ham are sort of ready to announce next week. So.
Interesting. Obviously, you've done your article yesterday, and like everybody, when they do an article or a video, in our case, that people come and say to you, "Oh, I know a little bit about that you've not got included, and I know a bit more than I've heard bits that
Yeah,
I've not heard the whole story, but I've heard bits and pieces. Have you got any sort of updates from your article from people that you would consider reliable, that you take their information, think actually, okay, that adds up with what I've heard, that maybe isn't there in text form, but you're happy to say?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. So since writing it, so I suppose an obvious way of explaining this is, where did I get the story from, right? So I got the story from contacts in the M&A world. I got the story from people who have been looking at West Ham, who have been talking to West Ham, and have therefore been sort of in the process, in one shape or another, right? Because they all sign NDAs. So I'm not saying I got it from this person, because I wouldn't and I can't, and it's not always that obvious. I mean, it's when you buy and sell something as big and as complicated as a football club, quite a few people end up finding out about it, because you ask them to do a valuation for you, ask them to do a little bit of work for you on this. It's a big world, because we're talking about the Premier League and it's global, but it's relatively small business, the buying and selling of clubs. There aren't that many banks that do it, for example, and there aren't that many law firms that do it. There's a few of them that have cornered the market. There's a sort of group of agents, and many of them former CEOs of clubs, or who have sort of specialized in making introductions, consulting people who are interested in buying football clubs, telling them how you do it. So it's a relatively small world, and they all kind of know what's going on. So that's where the story has come from. Now, since writing the piece, or really sort of since making kind of a flurry of phone calls really about it earlier this week, the people I've had a few contacts from just people I know in Europe, people based in sort of kind of near in and around the Czech Republic, so to speak, who are a little bit surprised. Oh right, okay, okay, I'm surprised he's going Premier League. I'm surprised he's okay. That I didn't see that coming with Kretinsky, because they've pointed out that Sparta Prague hasn't gone that well, and he is a private individual, and this will elevate him and increase scrutiny of him. So they've been a bit surprised at that. They did, people in, I can't sort of say who, but people in Europe have been a little bit surprised. But then others have sort of told me that, the closest, no, they've been talking a while. He loves football. He wants a Premier League football club. So I've sort of heard a bit of both since my story. The kind of a sort of surprise from people in Europe. Oh, I really didn't see this coming. Oh, okay, right. Oh, well, he wants a Premier League club. Blimey, that's expensive. And how much is he paying? Doesn't sound like him. He's not. He doesn't shop at that end of the market, if you know what I mean. He's more sort of the bargainer. He's looking for the sort of unloved item. No. This has been going on a while. He's a long way down the road. I think it could be next week. So that's what I've heard since writing the story.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, I think that covers everything. Is there anything I've missed, or anything that you feel like we should include in the video for people to discover?
Well, I don't know. I mean, no. I mean, I'm not a West Ham fan. I'm a neutral here.
Are you sure there's something there?
No. I'm a Southend United fan. So we have a funny relationship with West Ham. There are far too many West Ham fans in Essex. So but I know loads. I went to school with bloody loads of West Ham fans. So I know the patch. Look, I mean, I think this is the beginning of the end of the Gold Sullivan era. I really do.
Do you think that? Do you think, because as a West Ham
it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. They're not going to go straight away. But it's the
as
beginning.
A West Ham fan, I think this is the dream scenario for David Sullivan. I think David Sullivan's always wanted someone to come along that's richer than him, and to essentially own 49% of the club.
Well,
so he can run the club with someone else's money, essentially. I've always felt like that was David Sullivan's ideal setup for West Ham United, where he's in control, but he's using someone else's money that's richer than him. And Kretinsky just ticks a lot of that boxes for me. It's my own personal theory. So
it's a good theory. It's a good theory.
I've seen that line in your article which says it could spell the beginning of the end for Gold Sullivan and Brady. And I think it might spell the end well, certainly David Gold. I would be surprised if Kretinsky was to go through. I'd be surprised if Gold was still at West Ham in the future. He might have a small minority share just because he's a West Ham fan. He wants to hold on to it a little bit, but gets rid of the main chunk of it. But I'm not yet convinced that David Sullivan will sell. And I know March 23 is the magic date, but it's still 18 months away. And my own worry, if you like, as a West Ham fan, and it's a weird thing to worry about. So we are successful at the moment, you know, we're doing well in all competitions. And I think this is the best chance we've ever had since I've been alive of winning a trophy. And if we do that, I think that provides David Sullivan evidence. I am a good chairman of a football club. I've taken West Ham to win this competition. We're playing in European football. We've got 62,500 people turning up every week. The club's worth £600-700 million. I've got proof because this guy's paying the going rate for
well,
it.
that's.
And I just think David Sullivan, while I might not think he's a good chairman, you might not think he's a good chairman, the people watching this might not think he's a good chairman. I think David Sullivan thinks David Sullivan's a good football chairman.
I think he
does.
The
success of West Ham is providing him evidence to strengthen his case at the minute. And I'm not quite sure Sullivan will just give up West Ham yet. He's got plenty of money in the bank. He's not scared. He doesn't need the money. And the worst thing is the difference between Sullivan and Gold, by their age and health, is Gold's kids don't want West Ham United. Gold's kids have no interest in West Ham.
Right. Yeah.
Sullivan, Jack, is a big football fan, and he wasn't a West Ham fan when he came to West Ham, but I do believe he's now a big West Ham fan. I believe that. I believe Jack's a big West Ham fan.
Yep.
He's now doing charity work with the club in local, like the local hospice. He's working with them and stuff. He's doing good work as well. And he's done his apprenticeship at West Ham. And I think Jack's got a future in football ownership. And if you would say, Jack, what's your ideal? Well, West Ham. Why would it not be West Ham? Why would he want to go to League Two and work his way up? He's got a ready-made football club there. And I just worry that it's the end of Gold, maybe Brady. But Sullivan, I'm not quite convinced yet that Sullivan's going to go.
No, look, I don't disagree with a word you've said. You're right. So often with football clubs, it's about succession. We've seen this at Blackburn, Wigan. We're just going to see it at Bristol City. There's all sorts of other clubs, right, where Spurs, where someone owns the club for a very long time, and they get unwell or they die, and their family don't want it anymore. They're like, great, thank God, can we sell now? Now, I don't think that's Sullivan at all. I think you're right. I think there's a succession type issue here. You know, he's thinking about his kids. His kids love it. However, However, here's the counter argument. All right, and I might upset some of your listeners now.
That's all right.
Watchers,
I do it regularly. It's fine.
No, West Ham are very successful at the moment, right? But West Ham are a mid-table team historically. They're the sort of team that would start the season and think, right, we got survival first. It's relatively recently, as in the last 2 years, where they have changed the story. Great. I think that's wonderful. But how many clubs in the Premier League can actually sort of say in their business plan, their 5-year, 10-year business plan, we're a Premier League club for every single one of those years? Is West Ham that club yet? I know it's your 10th season. I know. And I know you're doing well really right now. Great. I like watching you. But could a West Ham owner in a 10-year business plan say we're going to be a Premier League club in the way that Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal can? I don't think so. And I can tell you right now either. Crucially, the industry does not think so.
Yeah,
I mean, they think you're in that middle group now, and you're elevating, you're rising the ranks all the time. Whenever I look at valuations of club, you know, I look at this stuff all the time. So Forbes had you about 8th in the Premier League. Someone else has you at 15th. You're probably closer to 8th and 15th. You look at sort of revenue tables. You look at where you are in Deloitte. You look at, you know, West Ham have become since moving and increasing your matchday revenue and your commercial. And being in London is an issue and all of that. But you're still very dependent. Where you sit in the revenue tables very much depends on where you finish on the pitch. You haven't managed to break that chain yet in the way the big six really have. So that thing about it doesn't really matter where Man United finish. That line that Ed Woodward, on-field success doesn't matter anymore. whilst that was a stupid thing to say and unbelievably arrogant, it was kind of true. It is true for them, for a very select group. Now, West Ham aren't there yet. And I can't see West Ham becoming that kind of club, certainly in the next 5 years, maybe 10.
Do you think
where on-field success massively matters for West Ham? Massively matters.
Would you apply the same rule of thumb you are for West Ham here? Would you apply that to Leicester City?
Well, I think Leicester's a really good example. I think you and Leicester are very, very close. Everton would be a step above you. You and Leicester, I think, are kind of. Are you number 8? Are you that's where you're at. That's where you're at. That's where Wolves would like to be. It's where obviously Newcastle now consider themselves to elevate themselves above you. We shall see. Lots of issues there. It's where did I say Wolves? I'll come in. Newcastle. Wolves would like to be there. Various clubs would like to be in that sort of kind of well, there's a big 8 now. There's a big 10 now, and we're in it. I think what West Ham have in their advantage, of course, is the stadium. The London issue. Those are all good. And at the moment, your team, but you're not there yet. So if I was your owner, everything you said in your bit, I completely agree with. But this could be an amazing time to sell, because it wasn't that long ago we came 15th, 16th. It wasn't that long ago people were throwing stuff at me, and they literally throwing stuff at me. Is this not a really good time to sell? And then the other bit I'd say is just about control. And I can certainly see Sullivan hanging around. Of course I can. And his kids hanging around. But just Kretinsky, I go back to that point of what's the point of owning 27% of a football club? Because it's not like owning 10% or 15% of Royal Mail and Sainsbury's. He wants you want to do something. There's no point attending meetings and having David Sullivan tell you stuff. I just don't see that.
I wouldn't like that, and I don't even know my favorite club. He gets my season ticket money every year, and that's it. And I wouldn't like.
And there's one other element. I'll add, and that's on Sullivan's wealth, which you're right is still big, and there's no one needs to worry about David Sullivan. One of the things I've been hearing about him for a while, him and Gold for a while, is that their money's pretty much in commercial property these days.
Yeah, in
high streets, and how are high streets doing?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that, especially COVID. I know COVID's battered, in particular, Sullivan's property empire, if you like. That's his portfolio away from West Ham, and I know that he's had to put some of them up for sale as well and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I do know that side of it's impacted, but I think that's why he wants someone else with money, so he doesn't have to put the money into West Ham. He can use someone else's.
That is the dream scenario. But my point is, will Kretinsky put up with it? Yeah. Will Kretinsky go? Yeah, all right then, David.
Probably not, but then if that's what it takes to make West Ham an established forever Premier League club, whatever words you use, so that you're just basically in the Premier League and you won't get relegated, then that's what you're going to have to do, isn't it? So plenty more twists and turns to come, Matt. It's not finished yet. It'll be an interesting road ahead for West Ham fans. Yeah,
absolutely. Exciting. Good luck.
Thank you, Matt. Apologies for keeping you so long. I said it would be 10-15 minutes. I just clocked how long it is. Apologies for that. But there you go. Matt Slater from The Athletic, everybody. If you enjoyed this interview, drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Make sure you check out The Athletic. Matt's article is still in the description, as it was yesterday. If you haven't read it, I'm sure you will have. And keep up to date with everything going on in the takeover from here on in. But Matt, thank you very much.
You're welcome.